Good evening, friends. Today's session is dedicated to all language lover, and the topic of discussion today is aim of education, particularly in the Indian context. Well, friends, you would be surprised to know that the aim of education in Indian tradition and context is to lead the students from darkness to night and to free them from all kind of dominance except that of reason. The fact that every kind of education imparted in our country aims at inculcating moral values besides bringing a change in the behavior and attitude of an individual. So the aim of education is not confined to knowledge, imparting knowledge. It is an all-round development of an individual. Therefore, we can say that the education imparted in schools and colleges instill among the students values like fearlessness, strength of conscience, and integrity of purpose. These are the three things that have to be developed together harmoniously. First one is the values such as fearlessness. Unless your mind is free from all fear, you cannot really get the real education. Second important thing is strength of the conscience. Your soul, your awakened soul, and your inner self must be strong. Your conscience, the judgment of wrong and right, must be very, very brightened. And the third one is integrity of purpose. Your purpose of leading such an education to light and knowledge must be well defined. Then comes the various definitions given by the great philosophers and great thinkers. According to Swami Vivekananda, the ideal of education should be balance personality of an individual, or balance growth of an individual. According to Swami Vivekananda, the ideal of education should be balanced growth of the individual. It should aim at not only developing the intellect. Education, according to Swami Vivekananda, should not only aim at sharpening our intellect, but also infuse in us a grace and love into our heart, just to make us more awakened. So Swami Vivekananda says that the education must aim at training our intellect, as well as training and infusing grace and love into our heart. For this purpose, it should be always important that education must impart both knowledge and wisdom. No education is a perfect education without wisdom. Knowledge is just, you can say, knowledge is outcome of information. Knowledge that we are imparting through our education in Indian system is just, it is an outcome of information. It is a set of information that is being given every day and every moment in every class to the children, and every moment we are providing the children or imparting the children outcome of information. So one aspect of education is outcome of information, but consistent, or rather you can say persistent assimilation of knowledge is wisdom. So that is more important. Education should develop both intellect. It should train our intellect as well as infuse our heart with love, and infuse our heart with grace and love. So the most important part of education is to develop and train our intellect, and also infuse grace and love into our heart. And therefore, knowledge is nothing. Knowledge is just an outcome of information. But wisdom is persistent assimilation of knowledge. So the children must assimilate the knowledge persistently so as to have wisdom. Now, Mahatma Gandhi said and argued that latent, implicit, and dominant potential perfection inherent in a being can be manifested by developing in the individual the capacities of heart, head, and hand. Gandhiji believed in 3H. He said that education must develop head, heart, and hand. Head is related to knowledge. Heart is related to emotional development, emotional and spiritual development, and hand is related to skill. So, education is really meaningful when it develops all the three. Head, that is, I mean, knowledge, heart, that is emotional development and spiritual development, and hand, that is skill. So if all the three are developed in an individual, education will be a perfect education. Plato says no amount of factual information would make ordinary man into educated or virtuous man unless something is awakened in him and in innate ability to live the life of the soul. So even Plato gives emphasis on developing, an ordinary man into educated man through awakening of his soul. So education must aim at awakening the inner self of an individual. Similarly, wisdom does not comprise pieces of disconnected information in isolation. Rather, it arises when we logically analyze the given information and apply them to solve practical problems. So, if education is not helping us to solve practical problems, education is no education at all. The the Upanishad says that a person, you know, may have knowledge or may have lot of information, may be interested in dramatic song and dance and the art of warfare. That is something, something else, governance and astronomy and others. But the most important part of education, according to Upanishad, is the theories that is based on the power of, apara vidya, worldly knowledge, and worldly knowledge as well as spiritual knowledge. A person cannot be said well educated unless he has a synthesis of theoretical and practical knowledge and leads to, viveka, wisdom. So again, the Upanishad also emphasizes on the awakening of inner self, awakening of viveka, that is wisdom. So wisdom becomes an important goal of every education. Education must be imparted keeping in view the awakening of our soul and developing our wisdom through consistent assimilation of knowledge. So knowledge must be imparted keeping in view the assimilation of knowledge leading to wisdom, and then only the education will be a meaningful education. Buddha says that synthesis of lower and mundane knowledge, which he calls, sanvitri, says that all the higher and super mundane knowledge called pranayama satya leads to wisdom. So again, even Buddha emphasizes on the perfection of what you call it practical knowledge, and culmination of theoretical as well as practical knowledge. Higher and mundane knowledge must be culminated together with the imparting of education. So in nutshell, we can say education must be imparted keeping in view the developing intellect as well as developing our soul. So no education is a perfect education unless it aims at developing the intellect, training the intellect of an individual, as well as infusing his heart with love and sympathy, with love and soft skill. So the modern education is also emphasizing on developing soft skill. Soft skill consists of emotional development, the values such as love, affection, togetherness, mutual understanding. These values comes under soft skill. hard skill comes with knowledge, information, all sorts of information, is development of all sort of information, all sorts of awareness among the individual is hard skill. And soft skill is, emotional development, that sense of love. It must, inculcate in every individual, every child, sense of love, sense of togetherness, sense of understanding, and sensitivity to nature. So this is how we come to conclude that education must aim at imparting knowledge, and knowledge must be assimilated to wisdom, and to gather wisdom, and to acquire wisdom. And once education is meant for acquiring both knowledge and wisdom, it is a perfect education, and that's what I believe. Thank you. Have a nice day ahead.